we talk about your T-shirt too, Mike?
I think we can talk about the T-shirt. And
Yeah.
thanks for starting things
Now,
off, Dustin.
now that it's live on Instagram, I feel like it's out in the open.
Cartello, it is a thing now, and I'm very proud of
Is this episode
effort.
brought to us? Is this episode brought to us by Cartello?
Well, it certainly is now.
By Cartello. Yeah, I love it.
That's right. So I've been out in wine country. I'm out in northern Sonoma the last 5 days, and yeah.
Tell us what's going on out there, Mike. What do you have?
So, well, as long as you're asking, we started a wine brand. Mr. Craig Lewis and Mr. Michael Oravitz and myself started Cartello, which is going to launch with the 2016 Biodynamic Syrah from Alexander Valley, and it's fabulous. And of course, we get to make T-shirts, which is one of the favorite things I ever get to do. So
it's really the whole point of the winery in the first place.
It's the only reason I do anything, Dustin. I little did I know I went to law school and started a law firm so that I could make T-shirts and send them to you.
I can't wait till you outgrow the T-shirt phase and you get into the NASCAR phase when you're just going to be wrapping your car. You're like, hey, honey, look, we got the car wrapped today and it's Cartello.
On your car already.
Why do you think we make the logos this way? So that they were perfect. None of the fanciful information you're going to find on a wine label. We're just going to punch you in the face with it.
What does Cartello mean, Mike?
Cartello means sign. And so there's a couple of different meanings there, but follow the sign, follow the Cartello. And that's the street yellow we have here, of course, but different labels will have different colors to coincide with the way we feel about the wine. And
who's the cast of characters? Who's the other cast of characters for those that don't know?
So Craig Lewis is a dear friend and runs Stelvio Selections Wine here in Colorado. And then Michael Oravitz is the founder of Mila Winery out in Alexander Valley, and they do some unbelievable Grenache and Cab and Syrah, and then so we decided to put a little project together on the Syrah side of things.
Cool. Can't wait to try some.
Great to start out with.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Syrah.
I mean, I know you love Syrah. I would bathe in Syrah as if it was an option. If it was an option.
So how do you do stomping of grapes socially distanced? Do you have to like get smaller buckets and like everybody gets their own little buckets instead of doing the big tank? Like, how are they taking that into consideration?
What I've seen, there's a small vineyard dog that runs around and nips at people to make sure that they're all staying proper distance from each other.
That little vicious dog only attacks who he knows he can beat, and he knew he had me, man. I was terrified. That little thing came right for me. Oh, lots of vengeance.
So, Mike, while you were out there, obviously there's a lot of talk on the news about the fires. So did you see any of that? Was there any impact? And what's the word on the vine about that?
Yeah, so pretty sad out there. Not as devastating as past fires from a property and residence structure kind of perspective. But we flew in on early Thursday morning. In fact, we didn't even know if we'd be able to make it in. Frankly, the evacuation zone was coming pretty close to Healdsburg and hadn't got to the east side of the 101 or even past Dry Creek, really, which is where the heart of that wine country really is. You have West Dry Creek, and then you get over to Alexander Valley and then north. But we were very nervous, but fortunately the fire department and everybody who was involved, they had been making fire dam breaks, I think is what they call them, and did an exceptional job. And then I think maybe the weather started to help out a little bit, although it's extremely dry and extremely hot out there. But by the time Friday rolled in, blue skies were coming back. You couldn't see anything on Thursday. So that gave us all a great deal of hope. But where the giant question mark rests for both Napa, who was hit very hard, and Sonoma, is smoke damage to the grapes. And that's going to be a big issue. And there's a couple different points on that one that are interesting. And unfortunately, there's no good answers. And one of the big deals is there going to be smoke damage to 2020 grapes? And the answer is nobody knows. And how do you determine whether or not there's going to be smoke damage and what does it look like? I mean, those are other series of questions that unfortunately what I've learned is there's not great answers to. So what you have is people running around without great information, without the ability to get any information from lab testing. I think ETS is like a 30-day backlog of testing for certain things that may indicate smoke damage. And 30 days, if you did a sampling this morning, you're probably going to pick this week. Yeah,
But it
I
seems
mean,
like that
so
UC Davis would be doing some kind of studies on this. Like you could do a controlled study of this instead of waiting till it happens, though, or something. Like I'm
well,
sure
sure,
somebody.
but I think that's a bigger picture item. But
Mhm.
the idea of, well, look, I'm gonna pay, you know, tens of thousands of dollars to pull grapes tonight, or maybe I shouldn't because they're damaged, they're worthless fruit. So what you have is you have winemakers saying, well, we're not going to buy the fruit, wine grower, and even though we have a contract, we think it's damaged, or you can't assure me that it's not damaged, so we're not going to buy the grapes.
Mhm.
I mean, that is horrific for the farmers, just absolutely horrific. And
A lot of the big guys are pulling out of their contracts. There's a lot
that's what we've heard. And so what's that done to the bulk juice market? As you can imagine, the bulk juice market, some would say, has gone way up. I hope that it continues to stay low. But it's caused a lot of confusion out there. And so, you know, from a business perspective, we're going to see conflict on the side of, we have a contract, you've got to buy these grapes, and there is absolutely no indication that they're damaged. You know, a smoke for a week does not necessarily make, cause smoke damage. And then what does smoke damage even look like? Is it ash falling from the sky, sitting in a dust type form on the grape, and then just becomes a part of the winemaking process? Or is it something more, you know, inside the actual, you know, the fruit, and it becomes a part, you know, it gets inside the skin, whatever the case may be, and it imparts different qualities. And then does it actually impart different types of qualities? You know, there's, over the years in a bottle, from what I've been hearing is the jury's out. It's not necessarily known whether or not there's actually lasting smoke damage. And we only have recent vintages with the control studies that you guys asked about. You know, it's really 16, 17, 18 where we've had these issues. And so we still have to wait and see. So it's just causing a lot of chaos out there from a perspective of, people aren't going to pull grapes because the wineries are not agreeing to buy them. It's causing the bulk juice market to go nuts. And then you're just going to have a lot of lawsuits is what you're going to have. And a lot of pissed off people who said, you should have never rejected the grapes in the first place, and you had no right to reject the grapes, and now we're all screwed. So lots of fun out there. But otherwise, the wine that is in the bottle, and, you know, the people who are pulling grapes, it does seem to be, from what I saw, almost business as usual. Harvest going on as usual. It seems like a little bit lighter this year, just from what we saw, but we're very low, you know, very local to Healdsburg, so I certainly couldn't speak to Napa or anything.
Mhm.
I had a good
And is this
chat
your
with Michael Cruz from Cruz Wine Co. About 2 weeks ago. We chatted a little bit about this. He wasn't super concerned about the smoke tank. His whole thought on it was, the smoke came at a period of time where the fruit was ripened enough that it's not going to affect the flavor of the wine. Had it been earlier in its ripening stages, there's some, difference in the development of the fruit at that point where it would kind of affect the flavor profile a lot more. So he wasn't concerned about it unless you're like in a place where you're right next to the fires. Like if you're deep in it, your vineyard's right there, then you have much more of an issue. But if you're, far enough away and it's just kind of the smoke is sort of coming in and laying through the vineyard a little bit, you should be fine. For at least from a qualitative standpoint.
And that's what I've heard. If the smoke comes in and
I wonder if there's like this may be an excuse for some of these bigger guys to pull out of contracts simply because they're maybe sitting on a little bit of inventory. Their throughput's not as high as it was because of what's been going on this year. This offered like a nice kind of, letting out some of the pressure on them for inventory purposes.
Could be. I would be, right as I write wine grower contracts, we put in fire and we put in smoke, but now given kind of the actions of some of what I've heard over the last week about how some of the wineries are treating the wine growers, boy, you've got to be super specific, because you could say we can reject smoke damaged grapes. And this goes to your point, Dustin, about, motive. If the contract says we're allowed to reject smoke damaged grapes, so we're just going to pull out and then use bulk wine we've got and just, kind of allow ourselves a little breathing room. But what is smoke damaged wine? And you have to then put in a contract, which, again, we do. You might say, like, if there's going to be an issue with quality of wine, we're going to all agree that a third party testing facility will be, kind of the arbiter. We'll go by what they say. But when you're dealing with the decision to pick fast, again, right now the grapes are about ready. If they haven't already been picked, they're the next day. We would have picked tomorrow if we were still there. And so things are just ready within 12 to 12 to 24 hours to really start ripping. We've, certainly out there, 114 degrees yesterday. Things are just ready to go. But if you're sitting there saying, well, if I'm wine grower and I have nobody to sell to because I know they're going to reject it, and we have a contract that says if the lab says it's smoke tainted, you don't have to take the grapes, but it's going to take 30 days. I don't have 30 days. I basically have 30 minutes to decide whether I'm picking tomorrow.
So what do they do?
Well, the answer is I don't know. I think the winery should be forced to buy the grapes, to honor the contract. You don't know that these are smoke damaged. And then if not, then to the extent that the wine grower could pull the grapes and even just get them into some type of processing and make bulk juice, maybe there's some opportunity there to mitigate the damage. But I certainly would say if you're a wine grower in that position, you do not, and that your grapes are rejected, for you to have to pull grapes on your own dime, as opposed to having them, send in a crew, for instance. Now you've got to pull them and find a place to process them last minute. I don't think it's reasonable, frankly.
Yeah.
I don't think you'd be held to say like you should have pulled those grapes. I don't think a court would say that. I mean, you always go to the contract, and this is why, I know handshake deals are a really big deal, in a lot of agricultural settings and certainly in the wine world. But this is where you need contracts, at least you can't get everything right. And I think smoke damage is a really tricky one to get right on a rejection side of a deal. But you got to have something where somebody feels like, I might have to buy this entire lot, of grapes I didn't pull. So we'll continue to monitor it because it's very interesting. And I think that it ultimately affects the quality of wines that the three of us love very much in that area.
Sure.
So that's what's going on. Yeah, that's what's going on out there.
I saw you drinking something, Mike. I've got a little cocktail here. What do you got?
Well, I am actually, in honor of the end of the PGA Tour season and Dustin Johnson's victory, I'm drinking a whiskey sour via a nice little Ben Hogan Swing cocktail glass.
Oh, Ben Hogan Swing. I remember the Life, was it Life magazine? Like there was a spread of him, of
the illustrations.
Yeah, that's who I learned my swing is modeled after his, although lost in translation a little bit. But
my favorite book.
Looking at
Modern Fundamentals of the Golf Swing by Ben Hogan.
Ooh, I like it. I like it.
It's a good one.
I have a Boulevard EA. I've been making these and sticking them in the freezer and pulling out a little nip because it's Labor Day. We're not laboring, and was thinking about cocktails, sitting around the couch watching movies. I love anytime like a bottle of wine shows up in a movie. I'm trying to guess what that is. Like, can you recognize the label? And then also realizing that cocktails also play a big part in movies. Mike, what would you say? I mean, I'll take the James Bond shaken, not stirred.
That's an easy
That's kind of off the table. But in that vein, what are some of the more iconic cocktail scenes or cocktails in movies?
I mean, there's so many, and I can't wait to hear your guys' thoughts on this. We have purposely not discussed. But two come to mind for me, and I'm not drinking either one of them, but we can talk about a movie that incorporates my drink.
Appletinis and Cosmopolitans?
That's the one. I've mixed them, Appletini, Cosmopolitan. I'm actually drinking a whiskey sour. We'll get to that. But I think my favorite cocktail scene or cocktail presence in any movie is Campari on the rocks on Life Aquatic with Bill Murray. I think that's just my favorite because of the way he drinks it throughout the movie and the way they ask, Campari on the rocks, and he just does that little deal there. And it's just in a way that only Bill Murray can do it. And I've gone through and thought of, okay, Bill Murray, where else have you done this? And he's got a couple of them. He's got a couple.
Suntory highballs in Lost in Translation.
That's one of them.
Suntory. That's
right. And it's everybody knows it from that. I mean, how many whiskey drinkers became whiskey drinkers because of that? It's just so cool. I mean, one of the great movies, of course, but just so cool. And at a time when whiskey was just skyrocketing in popularity.
I wonder if those were paid product placements or if those were actually like, I almost kind of think like Wes Anderson, like, great, this is like, it has to be Campari.
It had to be though.
Right. Whereas maybe Lost in Translation could have been any Japanese whiskey, but maybe,
I
I
would
don't know.
think, no, I would think there has to be a part of that. And first off, you'd certainly have to go get permission to a large extent to portray it in a certain way. The Campari to me though is what else could Steve Zissou drink as he goes around, the world on a boat? What else could he drink? It has to
Right.
be Campari. That's what you drink. The other one though from him is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was connecting dots. I want to hear what it is, and then I see a theme between these. If
Well,
it's the one I'm thinking of.
I don't know. This one's a stretch, but one of my, of course, favorite movies of all time is Groundhog Day. And
Yes,
to impress her, sweet vermouth on the rocks with a twist. And again, it's a non-mixed cocktail. So here's 3 for him. No mixers. It's Campari, it's whiskey, and then sweet vermouth. And of course he hates it. He can't choke it down because it's so bad. In a bar in Punxsutawney. But those to me all kind of go together for that same reason. Obviously you picked up on. But
we'll pick up we'll do wine in another one, but I just have to put it in there because we're talking Bill Murray, is the scene with Chevy Chase and Carl the groundskeeper in Caddyshack.
Oh yeah.
Cannonball coming at you, and he's got the Bob Marley joint, and he gives him a bottle of like Mateus or some cheap white wine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
with the finger hole in the jug.
Yeah. Dustin, what about you? What are some of the cocktail scenes in movies that stand out?
Well, I mean, this isn't a movie, but it's a series that in the beginning of quarantine, I had never seen the whole show front to back, so I decided to watch it. Was Mad Men, and those guys.
I haven't seen it. Would you recommend it?
I highly recommend it.
Okay.
It was very good. I'd seen like parts of season 1 a long time ago, but I'd never seen the rest of it. So decided to start watching it. And these guys, they're all dressed really well. It's fancy advertising, New York City, Madison Avenue, and the 50s, 60s. And they would basically just drink all day long. I mean, the office culture was kind of crazy back
They had
then.
bars in their office.
Full
bar
bars
carts.
Yeah, and they just pour themselves huge glasses of scotch almost all day long.
Now that we work at home, shouldn't we all start doing that?
Well,
Like
so I found, by like season 2, I was like, you know what? I want to join these guys in this drink. So it started, and I'm not usually a Scotch guy. I do love whiskey. I love bourbon. I would drink a lot of bourbon. But as I started to start drinking some Scotch, and with the show in the evenings after my work day was done, I'd turn on the show. I'd pour myself a nice little Scotch on the rocks and watch the show, and that was great. So
we came up just after the 3 martini lunch had been absolutely killed, of course, in the late. It probably died in the 80s.
Now, there's a lot of things that you don't want to be doing anymore.
No, but could you? I mean, truly, could you imagine going to lunch and having 3 martinis and going back to the office and working?
No.
I mean, I feel like I can have a couple cocktails. I could just not. I couldn't do it.
No.
Ethically, I'm not allowed to do it, but I mean, I couldn't do it.
Well, you go to what is it, Commander's Palace, and they still have like the 25-cent martini, and you can it's on the menu there, and it's a little bit smaller, but still it's why not have a 25-cent martini at lunch? Why wouldn't I?
Yeah, I guess if I'm going to be drinking all day, I might as well start now. A couple other good ones though that I think I personally believe other than James Bond, Shaken Not Stirred, the most iconic cocktail in all of film is the White Russian. I really do believe that. And
we should have done like a
Lebowski White Russian.
Yes,
we should have done like the newlywed game where you would tease it up like that, and then we hold up our sign. But next time,
the White Russian,
we'll do that.
Big Lebowski list makes an appearance so many times through the movie. It's incredible.
It ties the movie together in the same way as a rug might tie a room together.
He's in the supermarket, smelling the milk.
Yes.
Find the right milk for himself
before he writes a check for his cream.
When they do the remake of this, they're probably going to do like oat milk. White Russians or something, like, to make it more modern day.
With artisan coffee liqueur.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Speaking of, there's kind of a riff off of that. I mean, Big Lebowski, there's like, I wonder how many White Russians he had in the whole movie. Like, if you were to I'm sure somebody's done that.
Oh, yeah, they live by that movie.
Done that, Matt.
it's one of those cultural things where I don't know where the White Russian comes from. I might even put it in a tiki bar setting. I don't know. I don't know where it comes from. I guess we could have looked into it for today, but it just seems though that's a starting point culturally for so many of our peers. You know, it's a 1998 movie. For me, that puts me at pre-drinking age, but you look at that and you're like, well, I don't even know what that is. Like, you don't even know that this thing. So I think you might even put that as the catalyst. I mean, Campari, I'd never had before I saw Life Aquatic. And the first time I ever drank it, I remember, because I expected it to be like Hawaiian Punch Kool-Aid. You know, that beautiful red bottle. You're like, well, this is going to taste amazing. Can't believe more people are drinking it. And I take my first sip and I was like, hey, bartender, the bottle's bad. You might want to open another one. Like it was that offensive.
It's bitter. It tastes really
like,
bitter. It's
I can't. This is clearly not right. Something got into this. And now, of course, it's one of my favorites of all. But same thing with White Russian. Who thinks to have coffee liqueur, liquor, vodka, the way I make it, and cream? Who puts that together? And certainly in the late 90s, I think that had to have been a cultural start for that drink for so many people.
You want an orange whip? You want an orange whip? 3 orange whips. What's the movie?
Blues Brothers.
Blues Brothers. John Candy with the state police.
Let's not arrest them until they perform.
Yeah, I didn't know what an orange whip was, but it sounds like it's from the same like.
What is an orange?
Orange whip is like rum, vodka, cream, and orange juice.
It's like an orange. I think of it. I've never had one, but it's got to be like an orange Julius with liquor in it.
Yeah.
All right.
It looks like something you could have one of and then puke.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like the Dole Whip at Disney World.
Yeah, exactly. So funny thing is, I was flying to Pebble Beach Food and Wine, and Jill Zamorsky and I were meeting up in like LA, and then we're going to fly to Monterey. And we got into LA, and our flight got canceled or got delayed. And so we started doing a pub crawl through LAX, but all of the cocktail crawl and all of the restaurants in the terminals had already closed down. So the only place to go was that behemoth cocktail bar in the middle of the
I've never been
airport.
There. Is it good? Is it good?
If you're laid over, you had to go. Like you feel like it is actually a set. It's like a movie set.
Yeah.
And we played cocktail roulette, where I got to order her an 80s cocktail and she ordered me an 80s cocktail.
What's a great 80s cocktail?
I got her a grasshopper.
I don't even know what that is.
Dustin,
what is
green?
It's like Midori, right? It's
No. Green creme de menthe.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Milk
with
like heavy cream and a little cream de cacao. Oh. And I think she got me a Harvey Wallbanger. And they had to like dust off the Galliano bottle.
Now here I can tie this back into movies.
Okay.
The Harvey Wallbanger is in a movie called Snowball Express, a Disney production from the 70s, which is one of my favorite movies, of course, is why I know this. And they filmed this up in Crested Butte, and this family comes from New York and starts a ski lodge, and the girl has to learn how to be the bartender, and she's like, Harvey Wallbanger, is that even a thing? What is in a Harvey Wallbanger? Can you tell me?
Galliano, vodka, and orange juice. Sounds
pretty good. It's a good après drink.
Yeah. The only reason that people have Galliano on the back bar is it actually, it's tall enough that it actually, in the color, it actually collects all the dust from all the other bottles with it, because nobody touches that one. And so it's just stationary and just kind of, there's a magnetic, you wouldn't understand if I went into all the, the physics behind it. So, but for the most part, that's what it is. But keeping on the creamy cocktails, I was reading somewhere a list of like every cocktail they mentioned in the movie Cocktail with Tom Cruise, and there's like he jumps on the bar, he does the poem, but there's one in there called the Friar Tuck, which I'd never heard of, and the Friar Tuck is basically like it's in that White Russian family, but it's made with Frangelico. And if you look at the bottle of Frangelico, which is
it's like a monk,
basically
isn't it?
A monk, and it has the little thing
Yeah.
around the thing. Yeah. So it's basically like drinking Nutella, like a creamy Nutella kind of thing.
There was a great ad when I was in high school. We saw it. I don't know what magazine it would have been in, but it was this. It was an ad for Frangelico, and it was a guy. He said something about I wear sunglasses all the.
So you did read the articles.
I did read the
and the
articles,
ads.
and I'm sure it was in that magazine. But it was. I love sunglasses, and by the way, all I need to see is my glass of Frangelico. Like, okay, all right,
Amazing.
Frangelico.
That was born out of the Mad Men advertising firm. Like
It had to be.
It had to be. Taglines were amazing.
Those are just drinks. Then, yeah, I mean, you need somebody to make them cool again, and all of a sudden, people start drinking them again.
Now, well, what do you think though? Because of Sex in the City, I think did quite a bit for the cosmopolitan drink.
Absolutely. I think White Russian reborn, and then same thing for our generation, like for our culture, the culture of our generation, everybody had a cosmopolitan at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody except two of the bald guys on this show. So, I mean, you.
Yes, I was,
you crushed.
Oh, yeah, Cranberry. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Exactly. And I will say, and nobody will believe this, I've never seen the show once, but I have had cosmopolitan. I know you guys. I did actually. I'm not afraid to admit this. On one of my first cocktail menus, I did put a white Cosmo on there, and that was so cutting edge at the time, using white cranberry juice in rural West Virginia. Nobody had ever seen it. Like they thought,
wow,
it was something that they would have thought like now they would be like, oh, did you put in there and like spin it and actually separate the color from it, or how did that? Like, no, we just opened the bottle of Ocean Spray white cranberry, and it's amazing.
Because like the white Negroni was like a thing for a little while,
How do you make a white Negroni?
I can't remember everything that's in it, but I had it. It was at Pegu Club, I believe, are the ones that did it. Obviously this is quite a long time ago, but it had a
white vermouth, gin, and I forget what the other
maybe, yeah.
Lillet, yeah, that sounds about right.
But going on the '80s theme, think about little things that you miss. And I this just popped into my mind when you mentioned cocktail, but Iceman drinking the vodka by the bar. I mean, how cool was that, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's Iceman, that's the way he flies, and he's sitting there drinking vodka on the rocks. Just little things like that. Now, when you watch, certainly you've got to pay attention to those things. But
it defines a character. It defines a character.
Absolutely. No, I think that's absolutely right. And it makes sense that the Lebowski, the dude, drinks White Russians. I don't know that it made sense before, but it certainly now you're like, well, of course, that's what you'd have to drink. And Iceman has to drink, vodka on the rocks.
Imagine if you had switched James Bond and the dude,
yeah,
with their cocktails. Like if every time James Bond walked into a bar and with this tuxedo,
drinking 8,000 calories of cream,
I'd like a White Russian.
But you got to think,
with heavy cream, please.
You got to wonder.
Half and half.
You got to wonder if that happened, would it change people's perceptions on what kind of a drink that was? Would they find it? Would they think?
Oh, absolutely.
Would people going out to eat at nice restaurants order White Russians more often instead of associating that drink with maybe the dude instead?
Well, just like you joked,
like pretty,
But just like you guys, just like you joked, can a guy go order a Cosmopolitan? No,
absolutely.
I mean, it just.
I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to walk as soon as we're done. I'm going to walk out of here and I'm going to order a Cosmopolitan bar.
No, but what does a guy order? I mean, I'll take a vodka cranberry. It's the same thing. And you want it to taste the same. It's really just it's not a bad drink. It's vodka cranberry. Once upon a time in Hollywood, I'm drinking a whiskey sour, and that he drinks 8 whiskey sours. That's the whole thing where he can't go act the next morning because he's drank 8 whiskey sours. And I've probably got 22 years on whiskey sours. I just love them, and every now and again you wake up and you're like, maybe I shouldn't have had so many whiskey sours. And it's the sugar and the brown liquor, and of course you wake up and you're like, I'm never gonna have a whiskey sour again until 5 p.m. the next day. But it's a great scene in that movie where he's, it's depressing too. He's an alcoholic, but it's a great scene. But
in Cocktail, so that was, I think, it was modeled after TGI Fridays, and they actually hired a flair bartender from TGI Fridays to train the guys in there. And I don't think they served any normal drinks, but I do remember there's the scene when what's not Flanagan, but who's his Miyagi? Who's his
I can't remember, but
yes,
we know who you're
yes.
talking about.
yeah. But they're sitting on the boat, and he had like a bottle of Louis Tray on there, and it was like the first time I'd seen like Louis XIII. Like, oh my God, they're like sitting there drinking that. Two little trivia things out of this. Mike being the was it 80s or 90s? Was Cocktail was like 90s.
Cocktail was 80, I'd say it's 86, 87.
Yeah.
I'd go 87 on that guy.
I'm gonna Google that right now.
But it's definitely 80s.
1988. Okay.
Okay, so filmed in 87. Okay.
Anyway, so two classic songs that were introduced because of that movie, or
Kokomo.
classics from your era. Kokomo, which was actually written just for that movie. It was.
And who played the drums in Kokomo? Uncle Jesse.
Uncle
Jesse
did he?
from Full House. Yes.
What? Oh, I thought you meant
watch
Uncle
the video.
Jesse
Everybody, go watch the video. Jesse's the guy. He's doing the drums in that song.
Wow.
I thought you meant Uncle Jesse
Yes,
from Dukes
Stamos,
of Hazzard. Very different Jesse. Very different Jesse.
Oh, sorry. I meant, yeah, a little different.
And then Don't Worry, Be Happy. Bobby McFerrin was also in that.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Two other pieces of trivia that we could play out of this if you'd like, real quick.
I do want you to.
Yeah. So Kokomo, when that song came out, it was the song that inspired me to want to play saxophone when I was in middle school.
You and everybody else.
Which I ended up doing, and I learned that song, and I figured out how to play it, which was great. When I was
I need to hear that next time.
Believe it or not, I was a pretty good saxophone player back in the day.
Dustin is the bald Kenny D. He's the Kenny D. He's not Kenny G. He's Kenny D. Yeah.
Oh, that's right, Kenny D.
And then the other thing that you probably don't know, I don't know if I've ever told you guys this. I used to work at TGI Fridays back in the day.
I believe that.
And was a bartender and competed in one of those bartender Olympics and won my region actually for the flair contest. So yeah,
wow.
I used to be able to flip bottles like a champ.
Mind blown.
I think what I'm going to do tomorrow is I'm going to draft a subpoena and I'm going to serve it on TGA Fridays for all of those records. Because I need to see all of that.
This would have been like 2001, 2002.
I need the security camera for that TGI Fridays.
Amazing. Dustin, I had no idea. We got two amazing nuggets.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
The saxophone, like give me some of that sexy
Dustin,
sax music, Dustin.
All I have to say is, of course, this is the missing link, and we found it. And
so, Dustin, you don't have to answer this, but I'm just going to imagine that after you working your shifts, just juggling bottles and doing your flair stuff at Fridays, all the ladies writing their numbers in lipstick on their napkins, folding them and slipping it to you, and then there you go home, and you're like, well, let me put on some music. Oh, I don't see a tape player. Don't worry. Out comes the sunglasses.
I could not possibly make
saxophone.
fun of you. I'm jealous. So, any other cocktails from movies? I mean, now it's just like there's so many little ones, but
let's see.
Or shows. I mean, or even shows. I mean, there's so many funny. The funny thing is in Cheers, with 13 seasons of Cheers, nothing stands out from a cocktail perspective. It's just beer. It's
exactly
it's just beer and wine service.
All right, I'm gonna see. Cheers. We're talking about Cheers. Maybe you know this, Mike. One of my favorite things was like the opening scene.
Of course.
When Cliff would come or Norm would come in. It's a dog eat dog world,
and I'm wearing dog bone underwear.
Yes.
Right.
Milk bone underwear.
Milk bone underwear.
Yes.
Yep. And then my personal favorite is Woody asking him. He's like, "What's going on, Mr. Peterson?" He says, "Let's talk about what's going in, Mr. Peterson. Get me a beer, Woody." But those are great. I mean, and you wonder from moving forward perspective how much alcohol that alcohol plays a part in TV, and I think movies it would always be similar, but from a TV perspective to have a shows just focused around really just the service of alcohol. I wonder where we'll go with that.
I think it plays more into music now than it does film and TV. I would say, like I see, you hear more songs like name checking, whether it's cocktails or brands because there's a status with it. Back then, it was just like, this is my go-to cocktail. This is what defines me. the other one, Meet the Parents. What's his name? De Niro. He was a Tom Collins guy. That was his cocktail in that.
Makes sense.
What else?
You know-
No, those are good ones. It wasn't a cocktail, but to me, it's still the best delivery of any line in a movie was Pulp Fiction when she orders a
$5 milkshake.
$5 milkshake. He's like, let me take a second. And
I spent a lot of time watching TV, guys.
Yeah, Travolta is like high out of his mind on heroin.
I gotta see what a $8 milkshake tastes like.
$5. I got it. He's
$5,
like, I don't know if it's worth $5, but that's good.
Takes
Now-
a sip. He's like, that's a pretty good fucking shake.
Well, just
Best
because,
delivery.
and maybe to wrap it up, but I will tie us back to John Travolta, 7 and 7 from Saturday Night Fever. I mean, how great was 7 and 7? I mean, that's still in my repertoire, although I do Jack and Ginger, but it's the same drink.
All right,
7 and
gateway.
7.
Like, what is if you had to pick your one go-to cocktail, what is it?
It's whiskey sour, the way I make it. I don't do the egg whites. I do enjoy the egg whites, but I don't need them in every cocktail. That's like kind of like the first one. No, so
I save
just,
those for my omelets in the morning, and I drink with my whiskey sour.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes when I'm making eggs, I'm like, does this need a little whiskey? Maybe a little Luxardo cherry on top. Yeah, no, I got to stop drinking so many. But yeah, absolutely, the whiskey sour is just my go-to because it's perfect. When it's hot, it's perfect. When it's cold, it's perfect. I think it's a perfect cocktail. Citrus, a little bit of sugar, and great bourbon. It's shaken, which is how I prefer every cocktail, and it's perfect. If I could say that again, it's perfect. That's. What's your favorite? Let's end on that. Dustin, what's your favorite cocktail? Or maybe not even your favorite, but your go-to.
Yeah. Sab, what's yours?
Oh, it's hard for me to pin it down. I can come up with like 3. I've been really into the Boulevardiers lately. Love me a Negroni, and then like a really great daiquiri. And when I'm in, whenever I'm traveling overseas or a place where they can actually have Havana Club, having daiquiris with Havana Club 7 is like my jam.
Nice.
Yours, Dustin?
Well, I would say I would maybe point it down to 2. I love myself a good margarita from time to time, depending on where I am, what the occasion is. But I would say my go-to, the one that I order the most, if I'm going out to dinner somewhere or just have drinks or something, the thing that I normally always order is a rye Manhattan.
That's
Very good.
proper. That's
And
I think-
proper.
See, Mike, I go stirred. I like stirred and boozy.
I get it. You know, there was this bartender at TGI Fridays back in like 2001, 2002 that made the best whiskey sour. And I've just never, he was a regional champ, and I've just never been able to divorce myself from that quality of drink. And it was shaken. It was shaken.
Do you have a plaque anywhere, Dustin? Like that has to be like something like a plaque had to come with that. Like you don't just win the regionals without any getting
around your house sometime. I'll show you some tricks the next time we hang out. How's that?
It has to happen. It has to happen.
Amazing. Amazing.
I just need to, one little piece of information that I need from you before we end is what was the region that you were in? What region did you win?
Oh, I was in White Marsh, Maryland at the time.
Okay. All right.
I don't remember the name of the region, but it was like
That's
Northeast
enough.
Baltimore or something like that.
We'll do our homework on this one,
Your
and we'll be
homework.
back to you.
I don't know if you'll be
Is
able
there-
to find that, but
I was actually just drove through Maryland on the way to Virginia this weekend, and I stopped at Fridays, and there was like a plaque on there, and I was like, this can't be the Dustin Wilson.
very could have been. I was an excellent server, excellent bartender back then.
Well, the nice thing is right now TGI Fridays is in bankruptcy. So what we can do is go to the bankruptcy court and say, look, I'm interested in one asset only. And it's the plaque, Dustin's plaque from regional champ.
I want the bronze
2001.
jigger. Yeah, I want the bronze jigger, and yeah.
So yeah, I just knew telling you guys this.
Oh, it's good. You've
You've
made my day. You've made my day.
There's Ric Flair and there's Dustin D. Flair, so we
Right.
got it. Like, yeah, exactly.
Woo.
So,
All right.
anyway,
So why don't you
gentlemen,
take us out?
thank you all for listening. Hope you had as much fun as we did, and please make sure to like this, share it, and tune in next time for another amazing episode of Freerun. And also, by the way, tonight is the eve of Dustin Wilson's birthday. So Dustin, tonight's cocktail is for you. I'm going to go find some bottles that I'm not afraid of breaking. I'm going to try and juggle them in your honor and serve up a cocktail.
Very good.
So
Very good. Good luck.
happy birthday, my friend.
I'm excited that you're about to join me at age 41, Dustin.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. It's
Can't
gonna be
wait.
great.
Love it. All right,
Thank
guys. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very
Have a
much.
great one.